Henrik Lundqvist, King Henrik, Hall of Famer, Olympic gold medalist, the handsomest player in the NHL for 15 years that drew MILF eyes everywhere he went. As one of the greatest goaltenders of his generation, he piled up 459 wins, 6th in NHL history, and marched up the NHL record books as quickly as a French Republican army under Napoleon. Fast as hell. His greatness earned him legend status in New York, as he helped the team shrug off a decade of being amongst the worst teams in the league. And he even won a Vezina trophy, but he probably should have added a few more to his collection. But despite playing for a serious contender in New York and making the playoffs 12 times in his 15 seasons, King Henrik was never crowned a Stanley Cup champion. This handsome Swede came close, but ultimately retired as one of the greatest players to never lift a cup. But why? Lundqvist led some amazing Rangers teams, the best since Mark Messier's. So why did they consistently come up short? Well, buckle up. Lundqvist's career is a strange roller coaster ride. Consistent heights with no real lows, but missing a crowning achievement. This is how Lundqvist's Stanley Cup dreams failed to launch. Before we start, I get it. He's Henrik Lundqvist, one of the greatest goalies ever. Nothing about his career is a failure, and I admit that. I'm just forcing this one so that I get to talk about one of my favorite goalies ever. So just give it to me, alright? Lundqvist's Rangers career began in 2005, after starring for the Swedish elite leagues Frölunda Hockey Club over the previous 4 years. He was an absolute stone wall over there, and he reached unparalleled heights in 2004-2005. The young Swede was named the league's best goaltender, best player, and league MVP by his fellow players with some truly remarkable stats. Just insane. And he also led the team to 2 championships during his time there. New York fans were pumped about having this guy in the system, and he finally got to make his long-awaited debut on October 8th, 2005, against the Rangers' eternal rivals, the New Jersey Devils. They lost the game 3-2 in overtime, but the young goalie impressed. And only 8 days later, he was anointed his famous nickname, the King, by Rangers beat reporter Larry Brooks after he confidently led New York to a 5-1 win over the Atlanta Thrashers. The King was now in power, and he would not relinquish the throne once over the course of his long and prosperous reign. Lundqvist authored a truly remarkable debut season to consolidate his power. He went 30-12-9, with a sterling .922 save percentage and 2.24 goals against average. He broke the Rangers' all-time record for wins by a rookie goalie, previously held by Johnny Bower and Jim Henry, was among the league leaders in all goalie categories, and was a finalist for the Vezina trophy in his rookie season. Despite being a Vezina finalist, he missed out on being a Calder Trophy finalist as Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, and Dion Phaneuf snatched those nominations. 05-06 was a crazy strong year for rookies thanks to the lockout deleting the entire previous season. The King did make the all-rookie team though, so that was sweet. He kicked off his career with his first of 7 straight 30-win seasons. Our boy was elite. Unfortunately for New York fans, his play, and the play of the entire team, cratered in the playoffs as they were swept by the Devils. And this was the first time they had even made the playoffs since 1997, so it stung. And speaking of the team, let's take a look at who else was starring at Madison Square Garden alongside this handsome Tendy. The ageless Jaromir Jagr led the way, and put together the 3rd best season of his career in 2005-2006. Michael Nylander, Martin Straka, Martin Ruzinski, and Peter Pruka also supplied the offense for this 44, 26, and 12 team. These guys were talented veterans, though a bit expensive, and they even added talented Czech Peter Sikora halfway through the year. New York was looking like New Prague back in 2006. Needless to say, management and fans were disappointed this team got swept. But this season did set the tone for the early portion of Lundqvist's career. Scrappy New York teams with some veteran know-how who can make the playoffs but not do much else. Like the Clippers every year. In the 06 offseason, the team lost Sikora, who signed with the Edmonton Oilers, but added Brendan Shanahan and recent Stanley Cup champ Aaron Ward from the Hurricanes. And then before the curtain opened in the 06-07 season, the Rangers named Jágr their 24th captain in team history. And the team played well. Well, pretty much the same as last year. 42, 30, and 10, with 37 of those wins provided by Lundqvist, who played 70 games. The first of 4 seasons in a row where he played more than 70 games. Just fucking crazy. This cagey vet-filled team full of Czechs was skilled, but decided they needed to bring in an absolute dickhead from North York, Sean Avery, to add an agitating element to the team. Hell yeah. A young Ryan Callahan also forced his way onto the team, a grinder to complement the skill of Jágr and Nylander. And honestly, they needed everything they could get. The Rangers were 30, 27, and 6 at the end of February, but clutched up and went 12, 3, and 4 the rest of the way to clinch the East's 6th seed again. So, this team had a glorious chance to win their first playoff game since 1997. And they did more than that, sweeping the Atlanta Thrashers, rest in peace, out of the playoffs. Then in round 2, Lundqvist and the Rangers ran into the President's Trophy winning Buffalo Sabres. An absolute weapon of a team that led the league in goals thanks to 4 players scoring over 30. Plus the Sabres had a pretty good goalie themselves. Buffalo took the first 2 games at home, but New York battled back once the series shifted to MSG. They won both games of their homestand to tie the series, including a double overtime game that Roosevelt won with a shot from the point. Unfortunately, that was all the Rangers could muster. They lost the next 2 games and their playoff run was summarily executed. A second round exit, despite some stellar play by their elite goaltender. In 2007 free agency, Rangers GM Glenn Sather looked to build on their success. And boy, did he win July 1st. Sather reeled in Scott Gomez from the rival Devils and Chris Drury from the Sabres on some huge deals. 2 of the most coveted centers on the market were now in the Big Apple. And funnily enough, both these players wore 23 for their previous teams. So, Sather flipped a puck at their introductory press conference to see who would get 23 in New York. Drury won, so Gomez had to wear 19. Loser. Unfortunately, the Rangers lost Nylander to the Capitals in free agency, but these 2 new centers would more than fill the gap left by the elder Nylander. New York also drafted young Russian stud Alexei Cherepanov, 17th overall in the 2007 entry draft. The top-ranked European prospect and a projected top 5 pick, but teams were nervous about whether they'd be able to bring him over from Russia, so he fell right into New York's pocket. This kid had just scored 18 goals and 11 assists for Avangard Omsk in the Russian Super League. He looked fucking good. During the 07-08 season, the Rangers once again won 42 games, 37 of which were won by King Henrik again, who weaved together a fabulous season. He started 72 games and put up a 2.23 GAA, a .912 save percentage, and 10 shutouts, which led the league. New signings Gomez and Drury also impressed, though Jágr's numbers dipped a little bit. This was his age 35 season after all, pretty old for a normal NHL player. Dan Girardi and Brandon Dubinsky also emerged this season. With Callahan playing his first full season in the blue, red, and white, the Rangers' next generation was beginning to form. With their 42 wins, New York earned the 5th seed in the East and a divisional matchup with their Cross River rivals.
The Devils!
The Rangers won this series in 5 games, though it was pretty close for a 5-game series. But this series is pretty notable for another reason: Sean Avery. This is the series where the Super Pest became a household name, and he did it by squaring up against one of the greatest goalies of all time, Martin Brodeur, who he calls Fatso.
Well, Marty's a big whiner. He's always been a big whiner, and you just got to play through it. And I'm going to be in his face all night.
During Game 3, while the Rangers had a 5-on-3, Avery stood in front of Brodeur, faced the Hall of Fame Tendy, stared him in the face, and started waving his hands and stick to try and distract him, completely ignoring the play in the process. It was hilarious, so obviously the NHL had to ban it. Plus, Avery got in Brodeur's face, got physical with him, scored 3 goals against him this series, and called him out for leaving his wife for her sister-in-law. Pure chaos. Just what Avery wants. And it helped Lundqvist and the Rangers reach the second round, where they faced the dynamic, young Pittsburgh Penguins, led by Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, who pushed the Rangers aside in just 5 games. This was the first year of the Penguins' back-to-back finals appearances, and they were just on another level. Their young legs, speed, and elite skill easily beat out this relatively creaky Rangers team. Even Lundqvist couldn't keep New York in the series. And unfortunately, this team wouldn't be running it back next year. Captain Jágr, who had just played the last of the 7-year, $78 million contract he signed with Washington in 2001, said his farewell to New York and North America, signing a huge 2-year, $20 million deal with Avangard Omsk in the newly formed Continental Hockey League. A coup for the revamped Russian league. Straka, Shanahan, and Avery all left in free agency as well. But some fresh faces walked in the door. Fresh because they were new in New York, not because they were young. No, it was quite the opposite. Sather signed veterans Marcus Naslund and Wade Redden, 2 more big free agency ads after already signing Drury and Gomez the previous summer. Redden's deal, though, it was a stinker. His play had already started to dip in Ottawa, and it only got worse in the Big Apple. Naslund's deal was pretty okay, though. On October 3rd, before the season began, classic All-American Chris Drury was named New York's new captain, as management tabbed him to lead this new exciting chapter in the Rangers' annals. But only 10 days later, tragedy struck New York, Russia, and the Rangers' old captain. During an Avangard Omsk game in the KHL, Cherepanov, the Russian dynamo the team had drafted just 1 year ago, collapsed onto Jágr and couldn't be resuscitated. He was pronounced dead later that day at only 19 years old. In his honor, the KHL renamed the Rookie of the Year award to the Alexei Cherepanov Trophy. A beautiful sentiment, but one that everybody wished wasn't necessary. Continuing this team's strange Russian connection this season, the Rangers had just won the Victoria Cup by beating the 2008 European champions, the KHL's Metallurg Magnitogorsk, in overtime. The last time a KHL team played an NHL team. Which is interesting if you're fascinated by the Russian league like I am. Despite all the changes to the team's roster, this year wasn't much different. The team went 43-30-9, with Lundqvist's stellar play pretty much dragging them to respectability. Expensive veterans Redden, Gomez, Naslund, and Drury largely struggled, but they did get Sean Avery back after the Dallas Stars waived him for talking shit about some NHL players dating his ex-girlfriends. Despite all the cash management shelled out, this team kind of sucked. They allowed more goals than they scored and lost to the Capitals in the first round. They did lose in 7 games, respectable, but they blew a 3-1 series lead. Not that respectable. New York's struggles cost head coach Tom Renney his job in February. Boston native and cup-winning coach John Tortorella was brought in as Renney's replacement. Torts was now in the building. With the 08-09 season over, this first chapter of King Henrik's Rangers' reign is over. But dark, short days were ahead. The chrome-plated wheels were about to fall off this luxurious roster. These were the dark years of Lundqvist's New York career, but it also gave the Rangers a chance to reset their old and feeble roster. First, Naslund retired. The Canucks legend returned to Sweden after a down year, to munch on some meatballs and help design furniture, or whatever Swedes do in their free time. Then Glenn Sather pulled off a miraculous trade, sending the declining Scott Gomez and his cumbersome contract to Montreal, for a package highlighted by future captain Ryan McDonough. A masterstroke, really. Sather kept this active offseason rolling when he signed Marian Gaborik just a few days later. A 5-year, $37.5 million contract was enough to poach this speedy snipe show from Minnesota. Then New York drafted Chris Kreider 19th overall in the 2009 entry draft. An absolutely fantastic pick that would pay dividends down the line. During the 2009-2010 season, Lundqvist continued his insane consistency, starting 73 games and going 35, 27, and 10 with some very handsome stats to go with his handsome mug. Gaborik scored 42 goals and 86 points. A fantastic debut season in New York. Michael Del Zotto had himself a fine debut season for the Rangers as well. And Callahan made some strides too. But that's about all the positives from this season. New York finished the season 38, 33, and 11 and lost a do-or-die elimination game to Philly on the final game of the regular season. So they missed the playoffs for the first time since 2004. Tough. Like I said, these are dark days. The Rangers then had a quiet offseason where all they really did was sign Matt Zuccarello and enforcer Derek Boogaard, who has his own tragic story that I won't be delving into today. Bill Littlefield's interview with John Branch, who wrote Boogaard's biography, is a good place to start if you're interested in his tragic story. I'll put the link to that in the bio. So the 2010-2011 season started, and as it unfolded, it was clear that this Rangers team had improved. Demoting Redden's onerous contract to the AHL helped, as did the emergence of Derek Stepan, Artem Anisimov, and the young McDonough. Drury's career tailed off as well, leaving room for the kids to step up. This 2-year reset had worked. Lundqvist played a fuck ton again, starting 68 games and compiling a 36, 27, and 5 record with 11 shutouts and sterling stats. His consistency was remarkable, and it was enough to keep them in the playoff hunt until the final day of the regular season, where they again played for their playoff lives. This time, though, they won, beating the Devils 5-2 and earning the 8th and final playoff seed, thanks to Carolina losing their do-or-die matchup too. Sure, this team lost in 5 games to the top-seeded Capitals, but the foundation for the next era was set. Lundqvist, Gaborik, Callahan, Stepan, Dubinsky, Mark Stahl, Girardi, Anisimov, McDonough, and Zuccarello would soon form a formidable core. We're now entering the phase of Lundqvist's career where he had his best chances at a Cup, when the armies in front of our handsome general were at their strongest. After buying out club captain Drury, the Rangers signed Brad Richards to a massive 9-year deal, proving once again that the bright lights of the Big Apple were a top destination for stars in the free agent market. New York also drafted future All-Star JT Miller and named Ryan Callahan the new captain, the 26th in franchise history. Then, the team barged its way into the NHL's elite with a bang. The Rangers played elite defense thanks to Tortorella's tutelage and stellar play by McDonough, Girardi, Del Zotto, and Anton Stralman on the blue line. And behind that defensive monster, Lundqvist turned in a season for the ages. 39, 18, and 5 with a 1.97 GAA, 930 save percentage, and 8 shutouts. Good enough for the Kings' first and only Vezina trophy. It was a special season for him. This team was a defensive wagon, and the whole team bought into this identity. On offense, Gaborik, Richards, Callahan, and Stepan provided the goals and the playmaking. The speedy Carl Hagelin also broke through this year. Overall, the team's elite play earned them a 51, 24, and 7 record, first place in the Eastern Conference. Like I said, these guys were contenders now, and had the elite goaltending, superb defense, and playmakers on offense that defined the champions of the early 2010s. In the 2012 playoffs, the Rangers grinded out consecutive 7-game series to reach the Eastern Conference Finals, where they again faced their eternal Cross River rivals.
The Devils!
The Rangers looked good and hopped out to a 2-1 series lead thanks to 2 Lundqvist shutouts. The King looked to be on his way to his crown, but the Rangers faltered. Their sturdy defense broke, leading to a 4-1 Game 4 loss and a 5-3 Game 5 loss. Then in New Jersey, the Devils vanquished Lundqvist and the Rangers with a 3-2 overtime win. Adam Henrik jammed the winner in about a minute into overtime during a wild scramble, pushing the Devils into the finals. New Jersey's Kovalchuk-Parise era was wild. This wasn't the Rangers' year, but they had proved themselves to be amongst the NHL's elite. They had ripped their window of contention wide open. In the summer of 2012, I was smoking weed out of apples and pining over Selena Gomez. The Rangers, meanwhile, were looking to add to their monster, and they accomplished that with a massive trade. Sather sent out Anisimov and Dubinsky as part of a package to acquire all-star sniper Rick Nash. A bold swing to add more juice to New York's offense. And Nash played well this year, potting 21 goals and 21 assists in the lockout-shortened season. Stepan had a year as well. Oh, Derek, my Derek. Richards and Callahan both provided solid offense as well, but the team took a notable step back in the 12-13 season. They were still playoff caliber, finishing 6th and losing in the second round, but it was disappointing for a team expecting to compete for the Cup. Gaborik really struggled, leading the Rangers to move him at the deadline for Derek Brassard. Lundqvist, meanwhile, logged his first season without 30 wins in his career thanks to the NHL's half season. Thanks, Bettman. He still won 24 times though, and his playoff performance was excellent. This poor season was a blemish on Tortorella's record though, and it cost him his job. Sather and MSG fired him and brought in Alain Vigneault, who had just been fired by the Canucks. Funnily enough, the Canucks hired Tortorella to replace Vigneault, proving once again that the NHL coaching carousel is a game of musical chairs. And Vigneault helped revive this team in 2013-14. After opening the season with a disappointing 3-6, 9-game road trip, the Rangers buckled down and got to work. Their sturdy defense and goaltending once again proved a great foundation for the team, which went 45-31-6 and clinched the East's 5th seed. And King Henrik earned himself a king's ransom, as he signed a 7-year, $59.5 million extension with a cap hit of $8.5 million per year. He deserved and earned this contract, but it would make it a little tougher for New York to add impact players to the team in the coming years. Knowing the team needed another injection of offense, especially since Nash struggled this year, Sather made the controversial decision to trade Captain Callahan to the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for Hall of Famer Martin St. Louis, a 2004 Stanley Cup champion who, in his ageless grace, had captured his second Art Ross trophy in 2013. A short king dynamo to spark the Rangers' offense. That spark didn't amount to much in the regular season, but it helped in the postseason, where the King helped marshal a deep run. The Rangers won a tight 7-game opening round series against the Flyers, where neither team won consecutive games the whole series. In round 2, they overcame a 3-1 series deficit against Crosby and Malkin's Penguins to win another 7-gamer, and then beat the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games to reach the franchise's first Stanley Cup Final since 1994, their championship season. Beating the Habs must have wounded St. Louis, even though he's a staunch competitor. Here was Lundqvist's best chance at a cup, his closest stab at glory, his opportunity to join the group of elite goaltenders with rings on their fingers. Patrick Roy, former foe Martin Brodeur, Ken Dryden, Dominic Hasek. A gilded inner circle. But the Rangers lost 2 tight overtime games to start the series against the Los Angeles Kings, one in regular overtime and one in double overtime. Lundqvist backstopped a great Game 1, but he did allow 5 goals in Game 2, 4 in regulation, which is just too many goals for this tame Rangers offense to overcome. Heartbreaking. This team's mediocre offense then came up empty in a crushing Game 3 loss that put them down 3-0 in the finals. New York would avoid the sweep, but lost in 5 games after another double overtime heartbreaker. New York's offense only scored 3 goals over the last 3 games of the series as they came up short. King Henrik came so close to a crowning achievement, but ultimately, the Rangers failed due to their lackluster offense and some crushing overtime losses. Plus, these Kings championship teams were unreal, so credit to them. Former Ranger Marian Gaborik scored 14 goals to help power their championship run. Looks like he had some juice left after all. Unfortunately, that would be the closest this handsome fella came to lifting the cup. The Rangers would follow up their finals loss with a President's Trophy campaign in 2014-15 and another Eastern Conference Finals appearance, but lost another heartbreaker, this time in Game 7 against the surging Tampa Bay Lightning. Young guns Chris Kreider, Kevin Hayes, and JT Miller were all on the team by now, providing their speed and scoring. Buying out Brad Richards and a resurgent campaign from Rick Nash helped. They even acquired Keith Yandel in a massive move, and the Rangers made their 3rd Eastern Conference Final in 4 years. King Henrik continued his fine play as well, despite an injury, and went 30-13-3 with his usual elite stats. Like I keep saying, remarkable consistency. But he did struggle in the 2015 Eastern Conference Finals against Tampa Bay. A .902 save percentage and a 3 goals against average is far from his vaunted standards. His last real shot at a cup was undone by Tyler Johnson, Nikita Kucherov, and this amazing Lightning offense, who just ran over the Rangers' aging and brittle defense. It fucking sucks. Which leads me to my larger point. The Rangers should have been able to harness Lundqvist's insane consistency and generational talent enough to win at least once. I mean, this team had the guy in net. An elite goalie is so often a prerequisite for a Stanley Cup champion, and the Rangers had that every year. These clowns just couldn't figure out the rest of the roster. In the summer of 2015, Glenn Sather, New York's GM since 2000, decided to step down, citing the need to take a step back because, old. Jeff Gorton, a pro scout in the Rangers organization for the last 9 years, was tabbed as his replacement. The Rangers then traded away Hagelin, and St. Louis decided to retire. 2 weapons, leaving an offense that sorely needed them. Not great, guys. Regardless, the team went 46-27-9 in 15-16 and won 9 games in a row between October 25th and November 15th. But their offense never really got going, as the young Zuccarello ended up leading the team in points with 61. Nash's tenure in the Big Apple was really disappointing at this point, and this year he only notched 36 points. Tough. Plus, their famous defense looked like it was starting to regress a bit. They allowed 217 goals against, their most since the 2009-10 season, when this core was just beginning its ascent to contention. But that didn't affect our king. He became the first goalie in NHL history to start his career with 11 straight 20-win seasons. Elite stuff. And he put up a very nice 35-21-7 record on the season, with his usual accoutrements. Sire, you did good. In the playoffs, though, this team found themselves in the way of another finals-bound Penguins team, 8 years after the first time. New York basically did their best Crosby childhood Dryer impression and lost in 5 games. The series wasn't close, and it was clear that New York was slipping out of real contender status. To try and arrest this descent, Gorton swung a remarkable trade, sending Brassard and a 7th-round pick for a young Swede who was tearing up Canada's capital, Mika Zibanejad. Ottawa also threw in a second in this trade. Fucking losers. Then in 2016 free agency, New York hired speedster Michael Grabner and standout college forward Jimmy Vesey. But the Rangers didn't let that sloppiness derail their season. They rang in 2017 with a 26-12-1 record and looked like a real offensive engine again. New signing Grabner scored 27 goals, Kreider scored 28, and JT Miller scored 56 points. Zibanejad also impressed with 37 points in just 56 games. And New York put it together enough to win another playoff round, beating the Canadiens in 6 games. But then, Ottawa wanted revenge for that Zibanejad trade. They beat the Rangers in 6 games, and firmly shut Lundqvist's window of contention for good. The defense was faltering, and the offense wasn't really there. And to compound New York's issues, King Henrik's form was beginning to fade. He finished the 16-17 season with a record of 31-20-4 with decent stats that just don't look right on his HockeyDB page. He did still show up in the playoffs though. The King has class. Unfortunately, that spells the end of this era of contention for the New York Rangers. They iced some great teams, one that even made the finals, but ultimately just didn't have the offensive weapons they needed to help push their insane defense and goaltending over the hump. Now, Henrik and this Rangers core began their stroll through their golden years. The hangover after all these years of competing for a cup came hard, and it came fast to New York. The 2017-18 season started with high hopes, but it quickly spiraled into disaster. Injuries to Zibanejad, Kreider, and new addition Kevin Shattenkirk hurt the team. And after winning the 2018 Winter Classic against Buffalo, this once great roster played like shit. Going 6-16-2 between January 1st, 2018 and the trade deadline. Absolute crap. So management decided to plunge headfirst into a rebuild. Before the sun set on February 26th, Gordon had auctioned off captain Ryan McDonough, Rick Nash, Grabner, and JT Miller. Because it's always good to trade a young up-and-coming player as part of your rebuild. Yep, the golden era was truly over, and Lundqvist's twilight years had arrived. The Rangers finished 12th in the East in 17-18, which cost Alain Vigneault his job. Then 12th again in 18-19 under new head coach David Quinn. By the time New York returned to the playoffs in 2020 with a reworked core, Lundqvist found himself in a goaltending platoon with the Rangers' 2 rising Russian netminders, Igor Shesterkin and Alexander Georgiev. Lundqvist just didn't seem to have it anymore, as illustrated in their qualifying round series against the Hurricanes. Yeah, he kinda got lit up. Following this season, New York bought out the final year of the King's contract, bringing his 15-year reign as the face of the Rangers to a close. During his time in the Big Apple, Lundqvist rocketed up the Rangers' all-time goaltending stat leaderboards and walked away as the franchise's all-time leader in wins, games played, save percentage, and shutouts. But he left without a crowning Stanley Cup achievement befitting a goalie of his stature. His early chances at a cup were largely nullified by New York's management consistently betting on the wrong free agent horse. While his contending years fell short thanks to a lack of a high-end offense in front of him. Then New York's collapse and 2-year rebuild sunk Henrik's last chances at hoisting Lord Stanley in a Rangers sweater. Lundqvist signed on with the Capitals in the 2020 offseason, but would miss the entire 2021 season to recover from open heart surgery to try and resolve pericarditis, which is inflammation around the heart. Then in August 2021, he announced his retirement from professional hockey. A sad day. Over the years, Henrik Lundqvist dazzled fans with his athletic butterfly style and made the city of New York his own kingdom, but ultimately came up short in his pursuit for a Stanley Cup. His Rangers teams just couldn't get him over the hump. The King was 6-2 in Game 7s in his career, with an insane 1.11 goals against average and a .961 save percentage. The team just had to be good enough to get him to a Game 7 to close the series out, but they repeatedly failed to do so. Instead, He won fewer playoff games than he lost, even with a 2.30 GAA and a 921 save percentage. This team should have won more, but always had to let the king down. It's not like he wasn't clutch. The guy has an Olympic gold, world championship, and 2 titles back in Sweden to his name. But instead of joining the likes of Brodeur, Waugh, Dryden, and Hasek as the greatest goalies ever to win a cup, he had to settle for the consolation table. The greatest goalies to never win a cup table. Roberto Luongo, Ryan Miller, Pekka Rinne, Carey Price. Alright, not such a bad place for the king to settle down. With his retirement, the NHL bid farewell to a legend of the game. One who exemplified everything great about the game of hockey, but also one who learned the hard way just how difficult it is to hoist Lord Stanley. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you'd like to support me, head over to my Patreon and pledge me a couple of dollars a month so I can keep making videos. And let me know what failure to launch ideas you want me to explore next. Be it hockey, football, soccer, basketball, whatever. Thanks, guys. Peace.